All right. And good morning and good afternoon, good evening, everyone. And welcome to another session of A Course of Truly Foundation, of course. This is Truly Foundation with your host, Oliver. And today we are introducing a new lesson out of A Course in Miracles. And I am delighted to be here as your temporary guide, teacher, guru, friend. Well, permanently your friend, but temporarily your teacher and your guide, because there is a permanent, there is an everlasting guide, there's an everlasting uh, part of you that remains forever and ever and ever. And we only need temporary teachers, guys, to point us uh, when there is obviously a need for us to be redirected or reminded of who we are. And so that's this chair that I sit in today, but I sit in this chair as having equality with you and having equality with our creator and all creation, all living things. There's an order in all living things. There's an order in what God created. What God doesn't create tends to lean towards disorder. But where there is orderliness, there is godliness, because everything that God creates, He creates out of love, and love has order. Or may I say, love has honor, because God has honored His creation, meaning that all that God has created remained as it has been created. So there is an ever-present order. There's an ever-present honor that we can engage in, fellowship with, experience it at the highest level. But sometimes that is not the experience we have, because there are blocks to our perception, blocks to our understanding, blocks to our awareness that order, that honor is present right now. We put things before us that tend to be disorderly. We put things before us that seems to cause us to be in confusion and have a lack of clarity. But that's one of our main purposes here at Truly Foundation, and that is to help whosoever desire help, to bring clarity, to help to remove the blocks to the awareness that love is always present, that God is always present, that there's an order and an honor that is always present that we can enter into regardless of what is happening on the external. The external world is not the real world. Love is the real world. Order and honor and God and peace and joy and happiness and fulfillment and contentment. This is the real world. And this real world can only be seen and experienced from a pure heart. Jesus said, only the pure in heart shall see this order, this honor, this kingdom, this love, this bliss. And so all that God has created is pure, and God created us, and we are pure. But what we place in between us and that reality has to be removed. That's the simple process that we call transformation or renewal or redemption. We're just reclaiming or remembering our true identity, remembering our true essence and our true nature, which is the same as our creator God, our loving Father. And so today we're going to look at workbook lesson 243. Workbook lesson 243 out of A Course in Miracles. And thank you for joining me. So the idea for today, and each day we share one idea, grand idea, that can help us remove the blocks to the awareness that love is always present. These ideas, one idea contains all ideas. Just like God has placed himself in everything, every aspect of himself, every idea of himself. And so all of us are an idea of God. And with that, in that idea is the complete wholeness that God is. It's within all of us. God placed it there. And I'm so happy about that. And so today's idea is a huge idea. It's one that we've introduced before, and it has to do with the subject of judgment or non-judgment and the role that it plays in the removal or the placement of blocks to keep us from enjoying our true self, to keep us from enjoying one another, to keep us from enjoying this oneness that we share with God and all living things. So we're just removing blocks, right? And when the blocks are removed, that which was always there is what is left and what is revealed. See, when we remove every false idea about ourselves, get me here now. Listen to me here. Let me get real with you this morning. When we remove every falsity that we have attached ourselves to, that we have said yes to, that we have been conditioned by, every falsehood, when they are removed from our thinking, from our perception, from our allegiance, from our credence, when they are removed, all that is left is the real you, which is love. All that is left is that which you have always been seeking for, your true self, which is love, which is impersonal, which is infinite, and which is self-aware that it is love. When you become self-aware that you are love only, you have removed the blocks. You have removed the veil. You have disassociated yourself with all the falsities and all the mistruths about you. This has always been about you. Life is about you. It's always, all of this has been about you. The discovery of you, the discovery of your true self, your being here, your being born, your whole journey through this temporary experience is about you. And it's about you coming to discover you, the real you. That's what it's all about. It's not about the money. It's not about the houses. It's not about the cars. It's not about the relationships. It's not about the events or the activities. It's not about, your displaying your physical beauty or your intellect. It's not about winning and losing. It's not about death and birth. It's not about how many things we can accumulate. It's not about, being safe and surviving. And it's not about any of those things. This whole stage, which we call earthly life, this whole experience of manhood, of humanity, all of this experience, everything you see around you that seems to be independent of you and separate from you, all of this that we get distracted and we get we get excited or unexcited about, all of the sadness, all the happiness, all the suffering, all the pain, all the joy, all of this, all of it, all of life is about you. It really is. It is about you. It's always been about you. There's a saying that in religious circle that we are the apple of God's eye. No, you are more than that. You are more than that. Paul picked up on it in Ephesians just a little bit when he said that we are to the praise of his glory. We are to the praise of his glory. In other words, God said, look at what I am by looking at what I created, because what I created is what I am, and that is you. And until we can get our mind transformed and renewed to this reality, we will stumble. We will be like a yo-yo. We'll be up and down. But the truth that is true always brings us stability and a balance and a consistency that aligns with what God created. And that is what we are here to put on display. This is what we are. This is why we are here. Truly Foundation, not to multiply, but to extend this reality into the minds of those that have an ear to hear. And so, if you're listening to me today, I'll say it again. It's always been about you. God is certain. God is sure. Love is unchangeable and alterable and unaltered. Love is not an ego. It doesn't need to be paraded. It doesn't need to be put on a pedestal. God has a healthy self-image about itself. Love has a healthy self-image about itself. So this is not about heaven. This is not about God. This is not about our Father, our Creator. This is about you. Why? Because a part of God has fallen asleep and began to make up something about itself that is not true. It's false. You remain as God created you. You are the love. You are beyond an apple of an eye, but you are the very nature and the very essence of God himself. So God is all about your joy and your happiness. It's all about you. And it's not that we receive joy and happiness about that which is external to us, that which is in form or in time. But God knows that your joy and happiness comes from your knowing, the knowing of thyself, the real you that loves you. Why? Because the real you is love. All humanity is love. And when we don't know that, we act ourselves out. We act out in unloving ways. And that's what you see happening in the world. So and what we see happening in the world is not a thing for us to judge, but it's a thing for us to understand that they are crying out for love. Anytime we see disorder, disarray on display, anytime we see the belief in separation and division and strife, disharmony, anytime we see it, it is a crying out for love. Not a thing to be judged, but a crying out for love. And so what do we do? What do we do? As mature, aware beings, we hold the space for our brothers and sisters, the space of clarity and peace, the space of reality that they are loved. We hold that space for them. We don't judge them, but we hold the space for them until they can hold the space for themselves, because there was a time in your life where your life was chaotic, your life was disordered, your life was pain and suffering and misery that you could not see, that all you could see was hurt and pain and misery. You couldn't see your way out. But now that you have embraced the reality of your oneness with God and your oneness with all living things, and now we hold the space for the rest of God's creation until it wakes up to the reality of what it is, of who it is That's what we do here in this platform where we teach advanced spirituality. That is what we do. We hold a place, we hold a space of forgiveness, we hold a space of truth and reality for those that may be still blocked to the awareness of that. We hold a space for them because they are who we are. They are having the experience that maybe you had at some point, or maybe we're still having that experiences ourselves. And we do at times when we become afraid of love. When we become afraid of love, we can find ourselves falling back, vacillating. And how do we vacillate? We vacillate by considering thoughts that are not true. We vacillate by thinking in a way that is not the mind of Christ. And so today's lesson, let's get into today's lesson. That's a good preface for today's lesson. And so the idea for today in lesson 243 says, today I will. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. Let me say that again. This is a declaration of an idea that I'm going to practice today. This is what we're going to practice today. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. Now, one thing we do know about today, that between now and the end of the day, and the end of the day happens when you close your eyes on all the events and activities that took place today. And you leave this place, it's called sleeping. At the end of the day, we know between now and the end of the day, there's going to be things that occur. Because we're in the world of occurrences. We're in this perceptual world where nothing is stable, nothing is certain, everything is on the move. Everything is always changing, always altering. Nothing stays the same in terms of form. And so we live in a world of change, a world of what? A world of instability. And so things occur in an unstable environment. Things occur in an environment where there's not order. We see the disorder every day that happens in this world. We may even be trying to figure out our own disorder. And so today we make this commitment to ourselves. So say it to yourself. Today I will judge nothing that occurs. And it's important. This is a very important idea. This is very crucial to your soundness of mind and your joy and your peace and your happiness. To judge nothing. To judge no thing. So if it says to judge nothing, that means there's no exceptions. I mean, we can't judge one thing today. Can we make that commitment and do it? Can we practice this idea today? Sure, we can. Can we fall short of not judging everything? Sure, we can. Can we achieve perfection in this? Sure, we can. Depends on our level of dedication and our level of awareness, our level of consciousness and focus. What we're attending to, our ear, what we're listening to. So today I will judge nothing that occurs. So today we're talking about being non-judgmental. And anytime I hear this, hear a subject on the word judgment, I'm always taken immediately to our elder brother who mastered life, Jesus. He was the master of life. And I always go back to him because he's our example. He's the author of this course. He knows what he's talking about. So, and I always go back to, first of all, before I get into that, let me say that To judge. What is judgment? Or what is to judge? To judge is to form an opinion or a conclusion. To form, notice now, to form a opinion and a conclusion. And that formulation is about a form. We form an opinion about something in the form. We can form an opinion about an idea, which is a form of form. We can form an opinion about a thought, which is a form of form. A thought is a form. It might be an invisible form, but it's a form indeed. Just like a house is a form, it's a form indeed. But a house is nothing but a manifestation of an idea or of a thought. So it's just in a different form. So all things are forms, thought forms, physical forms, material forms, idea forms. And so anytime that it says that we form an opinion, to form an opinion means that there's a limited source, there's a limited amount of an awareness, a limited amount of consciousness, or a limited amount of information. So all judgments are based on limitation, and they're based on a lack of awareness, a lack of knowledge, a lack of completion. So in heaven, there is no judgment. Why? Because everything in heaven is complete. Judgment is an idea that rode in on the saddle of separation. We can only judge or form opinions or conclusion when we're operating in the field of what? Separation and division. So judgment comes into play when there is a lack of order, a lack of harmony, a lack of stability. There's no judgment in heaven because none of that exists in heaven. And when I say heaven, heaven is not a place. Heaven is your reality. Heaven is my reality. Jesus said the kingdom or the heaven is you. The kingdom of God is you. And so in your real self, in the real you that loves you, there is no judgment. It's a judgment-free zone. So here we're talking about our experience in this third dimensional world. How we are to what? How are we to operate within this changing, in this alterable world, this world of perception? How are we to? How are we? When I say we, the real you, the awakened one, the born again one, the enlightened one. How are you to operate in this world of change? You, the changeless one, how do you operate in the world of change? You that is the light, how do you operate in a world that appears to be dark? How do you do it? How do you be the light of the world? So to judge is to form an opinion or a conclusion. To express a bad opinion about someone based on our perceptions. So to judge another is to form a bad opinion about someone based on our limited perceptions. Put it to you that way. We don't have all the facts, all the information. And so when we judge, judgments are heavy burdens. Why? Because Jesus introduced to us the principle in Matthew 7. In Matthew chapter 7 of the Bible, Jesus made a very important statement, or he shared a very important principle about judgment. And he opened up his dissertation in Matthew chapter 7, verse 1 by saying two important words. He gave us the solution. He gave us the recommendation. And he said, judge not. I mean, he just opened up with that. Judge not. He didn't say, well, you under certain circumstances, under certain conditions, you need to judge. He said, no, judge not. That's pretty straightforward. He says, judge not. Why? He said, that you be not judged. So here he's saying to judge and to be judged. You don't want a part of that. Why? Because all of it's based on falsehood, incompleteness. So he says, judge not, that you be not judged. Because here's the principle. He said, if you judge not, you won't be judged. Nobody like to be judged in a negative way, right? So he said, judge not, and you will be not judged. Jesus is smart. I'm telling you, he's smart. He was smart. He says, judge not, that you be not judged. For with what judgment you judge? He said, with what judgment that you use to judge another, with what criteria, with what limited perception that you use, with what ideas you use, with what thoughts you use to judge another, with what measuring stick you use to judge another. He says, with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. He said the same opinion and conclusion that you form about another. He said that same opinion, that same conclusion will be formed about yourself. Think about that now. He said, for with what judgment you judge, you will be judged. In other words, when you judging another, you immediately judging yourself. So make sure that you think about this before you make an opinion or a conclusion or a judgment. He said, because with the measure that you use, with the criteria, with the standard, with the process that you use to judging them, you're going to be judging yourself. You will be judged. Why? In fact, as you are judging another, you are judging yourself. Why? Remember, metaphysics, reality. There's only one of us. There may appear to be 8 billion of us embodied, but there's only one of us. That's only one. God is, and there is nothing else. In fact, when we are judging another, we are judging God too. Why? Because God is part of this one of us. You're judging God too. That's why Paul said, who shall lay any charge to God's elect? So this thing about judgment is huge. If you want to really entangle yourself and imprison yourself, become the judge of the world. Become the judge of humanity. Become the judge of all living things. Become the judge of every occurrence. And you will find yourself imprisoned in the same judgment that you measured to others. That is the law. That's the law of love. Love does not judge. Love loves. You say, Oliver, but we must judge. Okay. Then you will be judged. You must be judged. You're judging yourself. There's only one judge and one judgment, and it's already been rendered. God rendered your judgment when he created you, and he judged you in righteousness and in holiness and in peace, and not only you, but all his creation. So now, who shall lay a charge to God's creation? Do we become greater than the Almighty? That we know it all, that we have a better idea, that we're able to not only judge, but to carry it out and sustain it. Do we have that ability? And so he says, you will be judged. if we judge, and this with the same measure. He said, and why do you look upon, you know what he said? He said, and why do you look upon the speck that's in your brother's eye? Or the block that's in your brother's way? Why do you look at the block that's in your brother's way? But you do not consider the mountain that's in your own way. He says, or how could you say to your brother, let me remove this speck that blocks your seeing? And look, a plank, a whole mountain is before our eyes. He said that's hypocritical, because we're all dealing with our own perception. He says, first remove the what? Remove the mountain from your own eyes to the awareness that love is present. He said, and then you will see clearly to remove the little speck from your brother's eyes to the awareness of love present. So it's all about you. You remember, it's all about us, and not all about our judgment, but it's all about our seeing the reality of who we are, to remove the mountain of disbelief, to remove the mountain of falsehood that we have placed between ourselves and reality. So he says, do not judge. And so today's idea is today we will judge nothing. So this is falling right in alignment with Jesus's principle that he taught in Matthew chapter 7. He's telling us he's going to give it to us in a way here that is a little different than what you read in Matthew. He say, today I will judge nothing that occurs. No thing that occurs. In other words, during our day and during every day, as long as we're in this environment, things are going to occur. Things are going to arise. Things are going to invite themselves or invite us or send invitations to us to join with them in the form of sight, what we can see with our eyes, what we can hear with our ears, what we can smell or taste or touch. Things are going to arise in our mind. Things are going to arise in your awareness and in your consciousness, with an invitation for you to join with it, for you to judge it, for you to have an opinion about it. We like to have an opinion we got an opinion about everything. Come on. If we just let our natural proclivity to take over, we have an opinion about everything and about everyone. All of us. All of us. There's no exception in that. However, Jesus is showing us here that we should not follow our natural proclivity to judge anything. But here he says, judge no thing. In other words, don't form an opinion or a conclusion based on its arising in whatever form it may be arising, or whatever limited circumstances that may be surrounded in. He said, judge them not. And so I will be, so it says here. So here's the lesson for today. We will be honest with ourselves today. We will not think that we already know what must remain beyond our present grasp. We will not think that we already know what must remain beyond what our present grasp is. Our limitation, our present grasp is limited based on our 5 physical senses, based on this perceptual world, because everything is moving and changing and being altered. If you don't believe me, wait 5 seconds and see, don't things be different? See, don't you be thinking differently? Things are always changing in this environment, this perceptual world, this ego driven, fear based world. He said, that being said, be honest or honor your true self, honor reality by not thinking that you already know what must be beyond your present grasp. It says, we will not think that we understand the whole. We will not think that we understand the whole. From little bits of our perception. Remember, perception has to do with what? Our interpretation. Our interpretations are influenced by our belief system, our conditionings that are limited based on the knowledge of this world. He says, so number one, we're going to be honest with ourselves. Number two, we're not going to think that we already know what is beyond our grasp. Number three, we will not think that we understand the whole from little bits and pieces of our what? Interpretations. He says, which are all that we can see. All that we can see is from our bits of perception. He said, from our limited perception, from our bits and pieces, we're not going to form opinions or conclusions. Why? He said, because it's not the whole, and we don't know it all. Where this world is concerned, we don't. There's only one that knows all. And we are part of that knows all. But we have forgot all. That's why you came here, to forget all. And now we're what? Remembering. This whole exercise is what? That we remember who we are. So we're in a stage of transformation. We are returning to our original, whole and complete self. That has never been altered. So today, we will recognize that this is so. Today, we just recognize this is so. And so today, we choose not to judge anything that occurs, because we know that judgment will be coming from a limited perception. Judgment will be coming from a place of disorder, a place of falsehood, a place of incomplete. If we're using our perceptual faculties based on the conditionings of this world, he said, if we're coming from a place of light and love, then we will not judge. Why? Because then we're coming from a place of love. If we want to come from a place of love, we will judge not. We want to come from a place of fear, he said, we will judge. That's just wisdom. So today we recognize this, that we are love. And to come from a place of love is to judge not. We recognize this. We recognize that the world is filled with those that still remain asleep, that see themselves as not how God created them. And when you see yourself in a way that God did not create you, in innocence, in wholeness, in holiness, in righteousness, and peace, you cannot but judge. Why? Because you're in a place that is what? Of disorder. And in disorder, there must be judgment. That's why it's so vital that we discover, number one, our number one job is to discover our real self. It's to discover the real you that loves you, to come to know that which God created, which is you. Who is innocent and whole and filled with light and filled with the fullness of God. It's so important. Doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing, what religious persuasion you may be in. It doesn't matter your politics. It doesn't matter whether you're in the arts or the sports or science, or it doesn't matter what side of the world you live on. It does not matter. What matters most of all, and this is not a judgment, this is reality, this is love, is that we come to know ourselves, which is judge less. That we come to know the reality of our oneness with God and with each other. That is so job one. It solves all other problems. It removes all pain and suffering when you come to know yourself. The judgeless one that you are. And so today we recognize that this is so. And so we are relieved. Here it is right here. We are relieved of judgments that we cannot make. I can't make a judgment. But I can what? I can love. And in my loving nature, I judge not. I choose not to judge because I know the reality of the situation. I know ultimately God, the will of God shall prevail. I know ultimately God has promised, and God cannot break his own promise, that all humanity will eventually wake up to the knowledge of their self, to the knowledge of the truth. That's a promise, is guaranteed by God. So if I know that, there's no need to judge. God has already judged, and God has judged everything in righteousness and in peace, based on what God created, not based on this perceptual world that is sending us all kinds of signs and signals and communication, that it is not so. And so we are relieved from judgment that we cannot make. Thus do we free ourselves and what we look upon to be in peace as God created us. And what we look upon to be in peace. Peace comes from looking upon what God created and not what fell asleep and acting out opposite of that which God created. It says this is peace, to be able to look at that which is demonstrated or on display that is a falsehood, and look through it and look past it and see what God created and judge not. That is a practice that we can all share. That is a practice that we should all embrace. Jesus demonstrated this many different ways and in many different stories in his life. When he said, all your judges have walked away and judged you not. He said, neither do I. I love it. He said, neither do I. Neither do I hold an opinion or a conclusion about you based on falsehood. He said, but I know who you are. You are the offspring of God. You are the very praise of God's glory. As you are, so is God in this world. As I am, so are you in this world. And how am I? I'm glorified. I'm sanctified. And so are you. So who shall lay a charge to God's elect? Who's the judge here? Judgments are heavy burdens that we lay upon ourselves. Why? Because we're judging ourselves. And the relinquishment of judgments results in freedom and in peace. The day we come to a realization that we place that responsibility on us out of ignorance. And no longer do we have to be the judge of anything. It is a great relinquishment. It's a great release. Most burdens come from judgment. The relinquishment of judgment results in freedom and peace. And this is our idea for today. This is our practice for today. This is what we're going to do today. We're going to do this thing. We're going to do this thing. And so to end today's lesson, we're going to end it with a declaration, a proclamation. And so we say, Father, today we leave creation free to be itself. We leave what you created free to be itself. And what did God create? God created everything like unto itself. God created the one Son, the one creation. He calls it what? The body of Christ, the one Son, the kingdom of God. God created himself, and it's very good. And God said, y'all stop judging me. So, Father, today we leave creation free to be itself. We honor all its parts. We honor all humanity, in which we are included. We honor our brothers and sisters, in which we are included. We honor you, God, in which we are concluded. We honor our elder brother, in which we are included. We all are free to be as God created us, without judgment. We are one. We are one. We are one. It says, we are one because each part, each one of us, contain your memory. The memory of God is within all of us. It's in all God's creation. The memory of God is within all of us. And when we remove the block to the awareness that the memory of God is in all of us, who we really are, our true identity is in all of us. We know it's there. The divine is in everyone. And when we know this, we say that we are one because each part contains your memory. As God is, so are we in this world. When you're seeing us, you've seen our Father. I and the Father are one. It is said in this oneness. And because of this oneness, your memory is within all of us. And truth must shine in all of us as one. Truth must shine. Truth will shine. God's purpose shall prevail in all of our lives. And we have to know that we can be certain of, that we can be sure of. What you can be sure of is that you exist, and that you exist in God and in love. That you can be sure of. You may not know why, but you know you do exist. You know that you are aware, and you know that you are conscious. That is your God. So today, we will judge nothing that occurs, and it doesn't matter what form it comes in. We're not going to judge it. Let's do that. Let's be that and see what happens. See what happens to your peace and your joy and your happiness. See what happens to the order of your thinking when you judge nothing, but you bless everything. All right, let's do it. We're going to do it today. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll be back tomorrow with another grand idea to help us to transform through the renewing of our minds. Peace.